Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to day 23. We are at the end of week 5 of this Diddy trial, and it is supposed to last no longer than 8 weeks. So we are getting closer to the day that this case will be handed over to the jury. So today, uh, a benefit again of starting late, we can kind of catch up on high level what's been happening today before we get into the testimony. So let me just tell you straight up that I think today is going to be another one of those days. And what I mean by that is another one of those days where we're going to get a lot of testimony that we've heard before. There's supposed to be another personal assistant that's going to take the stand. There's someone from Homeland Security that's going to take the stand. I think we've seen at this point now, this would be either maybe the fourth person we've seen from Homeland Security. And quite frankly, to me, each time one of those persons has taken the stand, it has been very disappointing. And disappointing from the perspective of I'm expecting, or I was expecting, that by the time we heard from Homeland Security agents, that they were going to be giving us the information to say, for us to be able to say, okay, there's the criminal enterprise. Oh, okay, I see why he's getting charged with RICO and racketeering. But they haven't done that. So at this point, whatever this Homeland Security agent is going to say today, I have low, the lowest of the low expectations that it will be anything to help any of us get any closer to saying, oh, excuse me, I understand why they're charging Diddy with this. I get it. Yeah. So, other things that have gone on today is that Kanye West has entered the chat, or literally entered the courtroom. So, from what they're saying, Kanye West showed up at court today. I don't think he stayed that long, but he stayed, I guess, long enough to make an entrance and to make quite a scene. There was a lot that had to be done with security because of who he is. And yeah, so Kanye West showed up, and you know what? Even though it's Kanye, say what you want to say about Kanye, and trust me, I say a lot about Kanye. If I were Diddy, it would actually feel good to see somebody out of all the people I know, to see somebody show up. So yeah, so Kanye West showed up today, and they're saying that he may be back Monday, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that. CNN wrote a little bit about him showing up, and security had to clear a road for him to sit with people who was with child. It was a child, but it is Kanye West. It is Kanye West. So that was a bit of a spectacle today. But again, if you were Diddy, you would have to feel good that, okay, at least I got somebody coming through for me. Now, what this also made me think about though was, yesterday when Jane was testifying and she was talking about the rapper who she went on a trip on his plane to Las Vegas with him and his girlfriend/wife. And she said this person was a musical icon, an icon in the music industry. She said that this person was very close to Diddy. And my mind first went to Jay-Z and Beyonce. And I'm like, oh, Lord, please don't let it be so. Please don't let it be so. Because if we've learned anything from this trial, if we didn't know it already, we know lifestyle of the rich and famous. We already know they're wild and they're into a lot of things. A lot of things. But this trial has shown us that, boy, y'all are into some things. Some things. So when Kanye showed up today, I thought, oh, I did not think about Kanye. maybe the rapper, because she said she got on the rapper's private jet, and like, okay, how many rappers are icons who could literally own their own private jet? I don't think that's a long list. And I did not think about Kanye. Kanye might have been the person that she was talking about. And just as a quick reminder, the defense, Diddy's team, they wanted all of the names mentioned. Everybody who was at that hotel in Las Vegas when Jane went to what Diddy said, another man's freak off, he was upset. He was not there. Excuse me. This later resulted in him and Jane getting into a physical fight. So Diddy's team wanted everyone who was there in Las Vegas for that freak off to be named, make it part of the public record. I said, boy, Diddy is telling you right now, I am ready to burn all this down because I am not going down by myself, or I'm not going, hey, nobody's showing up, nobody's standing up for me. For all we know, that might have motivated Kanye to come to court today. But Kanye is the type, and he's so volatile. And I know there is a portion of that is due to his mental illness challenges. But I'm sorry, even with that, he has too much influence to be doing some of the things he does and saying some of the things that he says. But yeah, Kanye might have been motivated to show up to court because of what was mentioned about this party in Las Vegas. But where I was going with that is this is also Kanye. We would not be shocked if Kanye gets on Twitter this weekend and just says, yeah, it was me. It was also this person and also this person. And Jay, we used to do this. Could you not see Kanye doing that? Could you not see Kanye doing that? So we got that. So there was also an issue with one of the jurors. From what I understand, it's a black male juror that I think the prosecutor or the prosecution was trying to get removed. And this juror is not an alternate. This is one of the jurors who's actually seated at this point to be a part of the decision. And from what I'm gathering, this is all about they're saying that he lives somewhere in New York. Maybe he lives in the Bronx, or didn't say he lived in the Bronx, or something about his address. Needless to say, the juror is staying. All right. And the last thing before we get into today's testimony is that the prosecution has again called Diddy out for nodding too much in agreement with things that are being said when the defense is questioning witnesses. The defense this time around said he did not do that and he hasn't done anything inappropriate. In fact, he's never done anything inappropriate while we're here in court. And while we're here in court, that's funny. But so I don't know, the gosh, what's going on with me? I don't know. The judge had warned Diddy twice to chill out with all of the what he called vigorous nodding. And he said if he did not chill out with that, he was going to have to watch his trial from outside the courtroom. Sorry, get a little bit of water. I don't know what's going on with me in this coffin. Maybe it's this candle. But anyway, so we had that going on. Needless to say, Diddy is still in the trial, in the courtroom. And then there was some mention about Diddy's son, I believe Christian, and Lord, get my words together. Diddy's son, Christian, was supposedly wearing a Free Puff shirt. And they said he had something mesh over the shirt, but he was wearing a Free Puff shirt. And they were surprised that Christian Combs was not asked to turn his shirt inside out. So they were talking about that. So those are the highlights from what I've heard about what has gone on today so far. Like I said at top of this live, I feel this today's proceedings is going to be much ado about nothing. It's going to be all the stuff that we've already heard about. All the stuff. It's going to be one more personal assistant that's going to tell us about freak offs, hotel nights, setting up of rooms. It's going to be more of the same. And again, we're at the end of 5 weeks. We're supposed to have no more than 8 weeks in this trial. We still have not seen KK, Diddy's right hand chief of staff, whose name was mentioned throughout pretty much everything, and her having a real strong direct involvement and even covering up some things. We have not heard from her, and people are saying that the prosecution might not call her as a witness. So if she is not called as a witness and she is not charged as a co-conspirator, what's up with that? How can you be his chief of staff, running around doing all the things these assistants and employees said you did, including a dereliction of duty? Because you, in some instances, KK, she, in some instances, was the boss. And people would go to her with complaints or whatever, and she was like, oh, it'll be all right. Just lay low. She didn't respond appropriately, in the corporate sense. She did not respond appropriately. She was the one who was chasing Eddie Garcia down to get the videotape of what happened in the Intercontinental Hotel with Diddy and Cassie, showing up at his job unannounced in the lobby, like, hey, y'all seen Eddie? Got to get that tape, Eddie. Calling Eddie at his house at night, still trying to get the tape. Eddie got all shook because he's like, how'd you get my personal number? That was KK. KK did a lot. So we'll see if we get to see KK. So what we're going to do now is we are going to jump into this testimony today. If this testimony and if today's proceedings are as lackluster as I think they're going to be, I want to tell you now, I am not committing to seeing it through to the end today. If I start feeling like, oh my God, we have already heard all of this. They're freaks. We get it. They like baby all and Astroglide and red lights and candles. We get it. If I start feeling like after we go through a whole lot of whatever's been said today that they're still on that type of time, I can't commit to stay with this thing through to the end of court today. It's Friday. It's Friday. I will leave these people, get off this live, go do whatever I want to do on this beautiful Friday because no, I'm tired of them. Excuse me. I'm really exhausted by the government at this point not putting on a case that is going to really support like RICO and racketeering, showing us what is the criminal enterprise and so on. So like I said, we'll see if I can make it through. Well, let me get off my soapbox and rein it in, as I always have to rein myself in. And let's jump to the testimony and let's see what they're talking about. Let's see if they are talking about anything. What they talking about? They ain't talking about nothing. What they talking about today? Okay, I got Kendrick on the brain. All right. Speaking of that, check out my channel. I have a video on there about Kendrick going to Toronto and the drama that was going on around that. Check it out. There's also other videos on the channel that are shorter around the whole Diddy trial. That's like Diddy trial gone wild. So I normally try to capture like what are some of the wildest, craziest things said on a given day. So those videos are on the channel too. Thumbs up the live. You can always say hi or drop a comment. Tell me how you feeling about this trial. Tell me, if you feeling like, no, you think they got him dead to rights and he going to jail for life or you want him to, hey, all opinions are welcome. Okay. Drop a comment. And if you are not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would definitely appreciate your support. Okay. Enough. I said I was going to rein myself in. Let me do better. All right, here we go. So on the stand, we have Homeland Security. I've already told y'all my expectations are low. 3 or 4 of these people have gotten on the stand during this trial, and in my opinion, they've delivered nothing. And I had such high expectations when they first came about them finally delivering evidence that would tie to racketeering, RICO, and that type of thing. And boom, nope. All right. So the prosecutor is asking, what's your job? This agent, Lamont, says, I work at HSI in Los Angeles, specializing in human trafficking. The prosecutor said, do you carry out search warrants? He said, yes, I've done around 50 or 60. Did you search 200 South Mapleton Drive in LA? He said, yes, at the request of Homeland Security in New York, we executed the warrant. Hmm. Prosecutor, let's show this exhibit, 200 South Mapleton Drive. What are these extra buildings? That's a sauna and a recording studio. Were all rooms searched? Yes, seized items and were logged into our case system. And then they admit the exhibit, sidebar. Okay. What are these? Floor plans of the property. How do you know they're accurate? The agent said, I was there in person. Prosecutor, how many manila envelopes did you find in the nightstand? The Homeland Security agent said 6. What was written on them? Just the letter K. Please show the stipulation. Testing showed that the envelope labeled K, marked with a shamrock, contained ketamine. Was there a safe in the closet? Yes, a gray one, visible in the photo. What was inside? Combs' passport and a plastic bag with unknown substances. According to the stipulation, paragraphs 15, 16, the brown pebbles tested positive for MDMA, is what the prosecutor said. What was in the bag? Johnson & Johnson baby oil, Astroglide, and lingerie. Okay, the agent said in the bathroom and the garage. The prosecutor said, let's show the photos. So there's a photo of a bookcase filled with baby oil, photo of a drawer full of Astroglide, photos of boxes marked Astroglide, about 2 dozen. Where were these boxes? In the garage. Approximately how many bottles of baby oil were found? Homeland Security said around 200. Now, with all the things we got going on in this world, is this a good way to spend tax dollars on Homeland Security? Especially since it's Homeland Security connected with S trafficking. There's a lot going on with that. Seems to me like these resources could be somewhere else more important, on cases more important, looking for women and doing the things they need to do. Why are we still talking about in this trial how many bottles of baby oil were found and how many bottles of Astroglide was found? So what? That's the big question after all of this, with all of the stuff with how the rooms were set up and Astroglide and so what? Is that a crime? Is that a crime? I digress. So the prosecutor asked how many bottles of Astroglide was. The agent said 900. The prosecutor said, let's move on to the firearms. What are these? The agent said a Ruger, a Glock, and several AR-15 style rifles. What's this in the photo? The agent said a Smith & Wesson rifle on a chair next to 3 30-round magazines. There was also a 5.11 bag. I don't know what that means. Prosecutor said, what was in it? The agent said rifles and a Mossberg shotgun. The prosecutor said, in this, the agent said this was a 60-round drum magazine with 59 rounds of green tip ammo. What's special about green tip ammo? The agent said it's armor piercing. Please check the firearms in the cart beside you. Lamont examines them. The serial numbers matched our records were available. Were any firearms missing serial numbers? He said, yes, one long gun. How's that usually done? The agent said, with a machine. The metal was smooth, not scratched. No further questions. Now the defense gets to cross-examine. You're aware Mr. Combs has private security, correct? The agent said, yes. And all firearms and ammo were found in the security office? He said, correct. Now see, that's what I'm saying right there. Y'all, I can already tell this is going to be one of these days. Okay. You found guns in the security area. Should security not have guns? Is that unusual? Is that a crime? Is that showing us that something nefarious was going on with Diddy and guns? And all firearms and ammo were found in the security office, the agent said. Correct. The defense attorney said no guns were found in the children's bedrooms. He said none. Was the security office locked when you arrived? The agent said no. But do you know if it normally stays locked? Did it have a lock? The special agent said it had a knob. Whether it locks, I'm not sure. Prosecutor said, do you have any reason to believe the safe was already open? The special agent said no. Defense attorney, Agent Lamont, when your team arrived at Mr. Combs' residence, who entered the home first? A special response team went in ahead of us. And what was the purpose of that team's entry? Special agent said their sole purpose was to clear the property in order to make sure it was safe for the rest of us to enter. They look for people, and if they encounter weapons, they secure them. The defense attorney said, so that team wasn't there to gather evidence or take photographs? Lamont said, no, they typically do not take photos. Their job is strictly safety and security. Then just to be clear, you weren't present when the firearms were first found. The special agent said, no, I was not. The defense attorney said, you also don't know whether that safe was locked when agents first found it. He said, no, I don't. What about the security room where the guns were later documented? Do you know if the door to that room was locked when agents arrived? The special agent said, I don't know if it was locked by then. It wasn't locked when I entered, but I can't speak to its condition before that. Cross ended and the jury went on break. Okay, Kanye West entered the courthouse and was directed to the overflow room. Oh, that only tickles me because I'm imagining that Kanye probably did not like being redirected to the overflow room. He probably wanted to sit up there with the Combs family, I'm sure. Okay, so the prosecutor says, Your Honor, I need to raise a concern regarding Mr. Combs' conduct during cross-examination. While defense questioned Special Agent Lamont, Mr. Combs was nodding emphatically. He did the same thing earlier this week during Jane's testimony. Okay, here we go again. All right, let me see where we go from there. That is something that the prosecution and the judge has gotten on Diddy about doing. So let's see where we go. The judge said, was he looking at the jury while doing this? The prosecutor said, even if he wasn't looking directly at the jury, the gestures were clear and deliberate. It's the kind of behavior that could be perceived as trying to influence them. Brian Steele said, Mr. Combs has not been looking at the jury. He's been composed and professional throughout the proceedings. He has done nothing inappropriate today or any other day, frankly. You better talk, Brian Steele. Look, if I ever get in some kind of legal trouble, I do not have the resources to afford a Brian Steele. But oh, how I wish I would have the resources to afford a Brian Steele. I like him. And I think he's a good lawyer. Okay, back to the testimony. The judge said, I remember we discussed this last week. I saw him nod towards the jury and both sides agreed to set clear expectations for their teams. That said, a level of reaction is natural. People respond to testimony. Thank you, Judge. Thank you. It's not possible to police every glance or gesture in the courtroom. However, let me reiterate, no one, and I mean no one, should be attempting to influence the jury. That includes gestures. Combs nods silently in acknowledgement. Okay. Prosecutor said, just to be clear, I'm not asking for a curative instruction or that Mr. Combs be removed. I just believe it's inappropriate for him to nod so emphatically, especially when the witness is simply responding yes or no. With crossover, the next witness was called. Thank God. Thank God. Do y'all see what I'm talking about? That special agent Lamont was a bust. What do we need that testimony for? What do we need that testimony for? I mean, so ultimately, you got on the stand to tell us that you came in after some other people went in, so you don't even really know what the conditions were at first arrival. But you took some guns out of the security area. Okay. Okay. And I can already tell. I can already tell that I doubt very seriously that this live will last as long as this court proceeding will last today. I can already tell. I can already tell. I can already tell. All right, so back to the testimony. Now they are calling Jonathan Perez to the stand. And Jonathan Perez, the assistant Jane mentioned several times in her testimony. All right, let's see what Jonathan has to say. I put my money on it's going to be a much ado about hotel nights and freak-offs. Let's see. All right. Prosecutor said, Mr. Perez, let's talk about your time as Mr. Combs' assistant. You worked for him from 2021 to 2024, correct? Perez said, that's right. And part of your responsibilities included setting up what were referred to as king nights. Now we got king nights. So we done went from calling these things freak-offs to hotel nights to now king nights. Okay. Jonathan said, yes, myself and other assistants will prepare hotel rooms for him, sometimes with candles, clothes, things like that. Prosecutor said, I'm showing you a message from August 12, 2023. You sent this to Mr. Combs and Jane. Can you read what you wrote? Perez read, just left 2 candles and room phone in front of room door. I'm only 9 minutes away if y'all need anything. Prosecutor, you also communicated with Christina Coram, KK, then Mr. Combs' chief of staff, correct? He said yes. In that conversation, she asked if the hotel room was ready. What did you respond? I told her I was going to the store to get outfits for Jane. Let's look at another message. This one from May 2023. Miss Coram asked how cleanup was going after a hotel night. Do you recall what the assistant replied? Perez slipped and fell twice. Oh my God. Oh my God. No, this has nothing to do with guilt for Diddy, but this is just hilarious. Your assistant cleaning up the hotel room after one of your, now they're calling them king nights, slipped and fell twice in the baby all. That's a lot. Prosecutor said, let's move to a separate incident, one involving a video. You testified that you were at Mr. Combs' Los Angeles home when his videographer discovered a video. He said, Perez said, yes, it showed Jane and another man having sex. It was on an iPad that we, the staff, usually used. Prosecutor, was Mr. Combs visible in that video? Said, yes, he was in the background. What did you do when you saw it? I took the iPad and told both Mr. Combs and Miss Coram about it separately. How did Mr. Combs react? He seemed surprised, genuinely. And what was Miss Coram's response? She told me that next time I should give the footage to her directly and she'd handle it. About 6 months later, did she bring the video up again? Perez said yes. She asked me questions about how the video was found. That's KK on her job. KK's job is to clean up Diddy's mess. So now the staff has come across an iPad with one of these freak off sessions. Diddy can be seen in the footage. Should I say footage? Can be seen in the video. And Perez, who's a personal assistant, takes the video to Diddy and say, "Hey man, look, I found this. You know, this is an iPad normally used by the staff." And he said Diddy was actually surprised. He told KK about it, so KK now is asking questions 6 months later. Which you know that has to be connected to something. Maybe Cassie's suit had dropped at that point. Okay, back to the testimony. Perez said she'd gotten a call from someone outside the company, someone talking about the video. Prosecutor, did you know that conversation was being recorded? Perez said, no, I had no idea I was being recorded. Boy. And KK also recorded a conversation she was having with, I think, Jane. So KK had a lot of stuff on her phone. That's why I say, is KK testifying in this trial? Where is she? Is she being charged as a co-conspirator? Okay, back to the testimony. The prosecutor said the jury has now heard that recording recovered from Miss Corum's phone during the 2024 seizure. Is everything you just told us consistent with that recording? Perez said, yes, it is. Prosecutor said, Mr. Perez, what was the reaction of the videographer? Jonathan Perez started screaming, freaking out of shock. That's okay. I'm not. I'm assuming Diddy was the videographer in the video. Started screaming, freaking out of shock. Okay. Not really sure what that means. I better circle back to that. Okay. The prosecutor said, Mr. Perez, were you required to testify by subpoena, and do you currently have an immunity deal in place? He said, yes. I'm showing you an item. Can you identify it? That's Mr. Combs' Gucci pouch. Prosecutor, what was typically kept inside that pouch? We all know what was kept inside that pouch. We've already covered this. It's drugs. My God, talking about beating a dead horse. I need the government to do better. Perez, Diddy's ex-assistant, said it usually held cash and drugs. Okay. Prosecutor said, let's move to some text messages. Who are these between? He said, between me and Rob. Prosecutor said, Rob texted you. Will you locate his Gucci pouch in his bathroom? What was your response? I replied, there was no residue and I didn't steal any. Adderall, LOL. Prosecutor said, what was Addie referring to? Perez said, Adderall. Prosecutor said, as part of your job, were you ever involved in getting drugs? He said, yes, a few times. I either bought them or picked them up from someone. Who were the drugs for? They were for Mr. Combs. And which drugs specifically? Cocaine, Xanax, and Molly. Prosecutor, how did you pay for them? With cash. Where did you get the money? Either from security or from the Gucci pouch. Do you remember who in security gave you money? He said, yes, Fahim. Let's take a look at this text message. What did you write here? I said I was still waiting for money from TriStar, which manages Mr. Combs' business affairs. Who at TriStar did you usually deal with? Perez said Robin Greenhill. Did Mr. Combs FaceTime you from Jane's house at any point? Perez said, yes, he did. I had dropped him off at Jane's house along with some of his personal items. A couple of hours later, he called me. Prosecutor, how did he come across during that video call? He seemed irritated and upset. Were you able to see Jane's face during the call? No, she was turned away from the camera. Prosecutor, what did he ask you during that call? He wanted me to confirm if another woman joined us on a recent trip. I told him no. Oh, so this is the call that was made when Diddy and Jane had gotten into a physical altercation, and Jane was upset about him going on a trip with some woman. Prosecutor said, was this true? He said, yes, there wasn't another woman. Prosecutor, and how did you handle yourself during that FaceTime? I acted pretty normally as far as I could tell. What action did you take? I informed Fahim and KK that Mr. Combs was having an argument with a guest, and I planned to go pick him up. What are we looking at here? The prosecutor asked. It's a message thread between me, Fahim, and Mr. Combs dated June 20th, 2024. Okay, so all of this is post the Cassie lawsuit. All of this, what we're reading now, is post the Cassie lawsuit. Okay. The assistant Perez said, I wrote that I needed money urgently for his guest. Did you know what the money was intended for? The assistant said, no, I wasn't told. Why did you eventually stop working for Mr. Combs? The assistant said, because I didn't want to end up in a situation like this. Go ahead, Perez. Understood. Understood. You are the second assistant out of the assistants we've seen that said, I got to go. Because y'all about to get me caught up in some ish, and I don't have Diddy's money to afford the lawyers he got, and I got to go. Prosecutor. And how do you feel about Mr. Combs today? Perez said, I still feel positively toward him, no different than when I worked for him. Prosecutor said, no further questions. The judge asked for a cross-examination, and Brian Steele is all cross. I like Brian. Let's see if Brian's going to entertain us today. All right. Brian Steele said, Mr. Perez, would you say Mr. Combs is someone who inspires and motivates others? Perez said, yes, he is. Brian Steele said, have you ever seen Mr. Combs cry? Give me a moment. Your Honor, may I present a book to the witness? The judge said, you may proceed. Still, this is from 3600 Materials, Exhibit 3605. Take a look. Perez said, I can't recall if he was crying, but this does bring back a memory of him being upset. Brian Steele said, please look again. Brian still wants you to see them tears. He wants you to say, yes, he was crying in that moment. Perez says, it doesn't refresh my memory. Okay, let's see what goes on next. Boy, I tell you, Brian Steele is entertaining to me. All right. Brian Steele said, understood. Earlier, you said there was a lot going on. Do you recall the searches that happened in March? Diddy's ex-assistant said, yes. You saw the coverage on the news? He said, I did. Have you ever been in the bedroom at the 2-star residence? He said, yes, I have. You ever come across any firearms there? Perez said, nope. Did you ever see Mr. Combs personally with any weapons? Perez said, never. The only people I saw with guns were members of his security team. That's because Mr. Combs is a high-profile individual. Perez said, yes. Brian still said, Mr. Combs is someone who holds respect across various industries, isn't he? The prosecution objects. The prosecution objects. They like, still, you stop trying to give your own kind of testimony up in here. The prosecution objects. Still said, let me rephrase. You've worked with other celebrities besides Mr. Combs. Perez said, yes. And it's common for them to have private security as well, correct? Perez said, yes. You mentioned Jane earlier. Did she treat you well? Perez said, yes, she was kind to me. Brian Steele said, you once described King Nights as Mr. Combs' personal time, didn't you? Perez said, I did. Mr. Combs is known to work long, demanding hours, right? Perez said, yes, that's true. Since you work from his residences, would you agree that sometimes his business life and personal life overlapped? Perez said, yes. So when you helped arrange a king night, would you consider that part of your job or something more personal? He said it was personal. And on the occasions when you were asked to get drugs, not that it happened frequently, that was also something done for his personal use, not business related, correct? He said, yes. You see what Brian Steele is doing? Brian Steele is saying, whether you like these choices that Sean Diddy Combs was making or not, the drugs, the freak offs, the women, the setting up of the hotel room. This assistant said he went in there trying to clean up one of them rooms after they had left, and he slipped and fell twice. Goddamn slip slide with all up in here. No matter how you feel about that, is that RICO? Is that racketeering? Is that signs of a criminal enterprise? These personal things. So that's what Steele is trying to drive home here. All right. Purchasing lingerie for Jane, that too fell under personal errands. Perez said yes. Did Jane ever seem unwilling to take part in the king nights? Object. Of course, the prosecution is going to object to that. Of course, they're going to object to that. I would love to be able to answer that on behalf of Jane after listening to her for 4 to 5 days on this stand. Jane was a willing participant in these freak offs, also called hotel nights, also called king nights. She was a willing participant, in my opinion, based off of her own testimony and her own messages and all of that. Jane, please. Okay. The judge overruled the objection. He said, "You may answer." Perez says she always appeared willing. Let me read that again. Did Jane ever seem unwilling to take part in the king nights? She always appeared willing. Brian Steele, when it came to the small quantity of drugs, this was strictly for personal use. Of course, the prosecution is going to object to that. And I love how see how Brian still tries to weave in. Now, when it comes to the small quantity of drugs, come on, y'all let's trip on this. I mean, he's a famous rich person. They do stuff, but it wasn't excessive. I not quite frankly, Brian, I think it's a little too late to try to sell that. Diddy was clearly an addict. But okay, I see what you're doing. Prosecution objects, the judge sustains the objection. Brian still said, Mr. Perez, let's go back to your earlier testimony. You mentioned that a staff member found a video on an iPad at Mr. Combs' home in LA. This video showed Jane and another man in a sexual situation, correct? He said, yes, that's right. Brian Steele said, was the main concern about the fact that such a private, intimate video was found on a company-issued work iPad? He said, yes, exactly. Now let's talk about your duties while working for Mr. Combs. Roughly how much of your time was spent on handling personal tasks? Perez said probably about 1% was personal. Did Mr. Combs ever need your help connecting to Bluetooth? Perez said yes. Would you say he wasn't very tech savvy? Mr. Perez said that's right. Brian Steele said he was working intensely on an album at the time, correct? Perez said yes. You said he and Christina Coram were close. Are you implying there was a romantic or sexual relationship? Now, that's the first time now I'm going to tell you, I did think that because knowing how Diddy is with these women, I was like, now, this your right-hand person, your rock, she runs your life. But y'all doing that thing over there? I wondered that. Perez said, no, I am not suggesting that. Okay. Brian still said, the disagreement you saw between Combs and Jane over FaceTime, it was verbal, not physical, right? He said, yes, just verbal from what I saw. And later you learned it was about jealousy. Perez said, yes. Jane was quite jealous. I was like, objection. The judge sustains the objection. Are you and Jane around the same age? Brian still asks Perez. He said yes. Would you describe Jane as a strong and independent person? Perez says yes. You once made purchases at adult stores using a company credit card. He said, I did. But you don't know if Mr. Combs actually paid for them. He said, correct, I don't. The hotel room was booked under your name, and you were the one who had to go in and prepare it. Perez said yes. Because if it had been under Mr. Combs' name, it could have drawn attention or triggered hotel cameras, right? Perez said right. Brian still said, Your Honor, we like to submit this exhibit. The prosecution objects. Boy, the prosecution is objecting up a storm today. Judge said, do we need to discuss this at the bench? Several objections. Sidebar. Very well. Let's proceed with a sidebar. Okay. Let's see where we go from there. Okay. Hold on. Let's see if we got an update. Because have we caught up with them this quickly? Maybe so. You all, we normally start way later than the trial starts, so we can miss some of the time, but this was 19 minutes ago. So let me just see if we have anything here. Let's proceed with the sidebar. Waste of time. The man has receipts. Okay. So we're just waiting now to see. I guess they're still having the sidebar. A 19-minute sidebar though? That's crazy. That is crazy. Okay. Okay. Well, as y'all can see, based off of the testimony that we have been privy to so far, it is just exactly what I thought today was going to be. It is exactly what I thought today was going to be. It was going to be more testimony, and they're in a sidebar right now. They've got to be out of this sidebar by now. But it's more testimony about baby oil, Astroglide, the setting up of rooms, drugs, guns that were in the security room. Okay, security guards got guns. More the same. This witness so far is not testifying to anything about witnessing any physical abuse, witnessing anything that was over the top. This ex-assistant is basically, y'all, just giving us the same testimony we've already heard from multiple people. Were there freak offs? Yes. Were there rooms that had to be set up to accommodate these freak offs? Yes. Was there baby oil involved? Yes. Was there Astroglide involved? Yes. Was there outfits, special outfits that Jane or other women would wear? Yes. Were there drugs? Yes. They asked this assistant, at any time when you saw Jane, did she ever look unwilling to participate? He said never. What we doing? What are we doing? That question is for the government. What are you doing? What are you doing? Where's KK? Because you got these people up here now being redundant and being repetitive. And if I was on that jury, I would be frustrated. They're repetitive, they're redundant, and they're being redundant with information to me that would make me as a juror not be able to vote guilty. I mean, how am I going to vote guilty? I know it would depend on what charge they're discussing at the time. But I can't declare him guilty at all based off of these freak offs. I cannot. Now the prostitution thing and the hiring of prostitutes and paying for a commercial sex act and flying them across state lines. Now that I could vote guilty. To me, they got him dead to right on that. He's guilty on that. Okay, whatever. I don't know what time that particular charge gets, but I honestly think that is the only thing that I feel they have beyond a reasonable doubt proven. The thing with Kid Cudi's car, and we're just talking about these things, y'all, while we're waiting for them to update the testimony that's happening today. But the thing with Kid Cudi's car, do I believe it is very likely that Diddy has something to do with Kid Cudi's car being set on fire? Absolutely. Did they prove that to me in court? Nope, they did not. They did not. Now, if they had a charge on there for burglary or breaking and entering, did they provide enough information to say that Diddy did that? I would feel as a juror that they did, and I could say guilty on that. But arson, which I know is one of the charges, all I'm sitting here as an outside spectator is saying, Diddy crazy their ass. The way he's wilding out, the way he think he's the king of the world, he did that. I believe he did that. The fact that he was bold enough to go into that man's house, put the man's dog in the closet or the bathroom or whatever he did with the dog. He went over there talking about he was going over there to kill this man over Cassie. So do I think that man could have set his car on fire or had someone set his car on fire? Absolutely, I believe that. Do I feel like they presented enough evidence for me to say beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it? No, because I don't think I can convict you based off of, the way you move in the world. I think you're capable of that. I think I'm supposed to be looking for evidence to prove that, yes, you were connected to that. Where is it? So today, it's just like what I thought it would be, unfortunately. The Homeland Security person, the agent who was on the stand, much ado about nothing. Much ado about nothing. You testified, the security person, about guns that you found that were in the area where the security team is. Okay. The security team, should they not have guns? Is that illegal? So to be at the end of week 5, and to still feel like I haven't seen anything yet to tell me what is the criminal enterprise that Diddy's bad behavior was supporting. What is it? I haven't seen that. What is the criminal enterprise? We have not seen that yet. So that's the part that's frustrating to me. Like I said, I am no fan of Diddy's at all. I think Diddy is a horrible person. I think Diddy is guilty probably of a lot of shit that he's not even being charged with today. He's definitely guilty of domestic violence, but that's not what he's charged with. Okay. But when I step back, I have to feel, I want to know that the process worked the way it's supposed to work. And even though I think Diddy is like a bad person and definitely I don't think he needs therapy. I think he needs an exorcism. I think Diddy needs an exorcism, okay? Dude got some problems, right? You go back and listen to some of his interviews. He's talking about battling dark times and all that. Dude has problems, okay? Telling people he the devil and he could kill him. The dude has problems. I tell you, this man needs an exorcism. Call in the Pope, okay? But having said all of that, if he goes to prison, he needs to go to prison on stuff that was actually you were able to prove. And a lot of these charges, some of the bigger charges that the government has on Diddy, in my opinion, they've not proven those yet. Now, they've proven some things. Well, in my opinion, he's going to prison. It's just a matter for how long and for which charges he'll be found guilty of. But it's a lot they have not proven. And so, as a person observing this, and especially as a Black person, I have to care about the process. I have to care about the process. You can't use RICO as this huge umbrella to get somebody and then not be able to prove it. Not to mention put the person in prison for life. If you put this person in prison for life on stuff you're able to prove, considering that I feel like Diddy put himself in this situation, I would lose no sleep over it. I will feel bad for his family. I will feel it's a shame that this is what his legacy has come to. But if you ask me, he's been screwing up this legacy long before this trial, just based on how he even treated his artists. So again, I have to care about the process. I have to care about that when you bring forth these charges, you believe you could prove these charges. If you're going to bring a significant charge like RICO or racketeering, you should believe you could prove those charges. And that thing everybody always says. Well, when the government brings a case, they already know it's a slam dunk. They have a 90-something% conviction rate, blah, 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 blah. First of all, what most people don't tell you is that conviction rate, a lot of it is from deals. A lot of people don't even take them to court. Okay. So, but nevertheless, that to me doesn't mean anything when I'm witnessing what's going on in this case, because for us to be at the end of week 5 and near the end of the government's part of putting on their case in this trial, we should not still be sitting here saying, okay, but what is the criminal enterprise though? Because RICO is supposed to be about you are committing criminal acts and you have other people committing criminal acts in the furtherance of a criminal enterprise. What exactly is the criminal enterprise? Oh, we ain't got that yet? Oh, okay. But you know we're at the end of week 5, right? Oh, okay. Okay. So that's how I feel about that right now. All right, so let's see. We have this update, and hopefully it's not the only one. Let's see. Okay, she's starting to rock and roll with the updates again. All right, so we left off with them having a sidebar. Now, Brian still said, Mr. Perez, earlier you testified that you sometimes use the company credit card to purchase personal items for Mr. Combs, specifically outfits for Jane from the sex store. Is that correct? He said, yes, that's correct. And were you aware whether those charges were eventually paid with company funds or from Combs's personal account? He said, no, I don't know how they were paid off. I wasn't involved in that part. So the defense team said, and then still shows the jury a series of text messages. Mr. Perez, these messages were between you and Jane during your time working for Mr. Combs. Do you recognize these? He said, yes, I do. These messages span different points in your employment, correct? He said, that's right. Brian Steele said, and some of them, you and Jane are planning for what you've described as king nights, packing items like underwear. He said, yes. And in others, she's asking you to handle various tasks for her or for Mr. Combs. He said, that's correct. Based on the tone of those messages, would you say Jane seemed upset? He said, no, she did not seem upset in any of them. Let me tell y'all something about this ex-personal assistant, Jonathan Perez. Jonathan Perez, based on how he's answering these questions, he ain't trying to feel what Jane's trying to tell everybody right now either. He ain't trying to feel it either. And he had a first-hand seat at what was going on. He is not trying to feel it. She didn't appear to be upset. She never seemed as if she was doing something against her will. She was pleasant and kind to him. So I'm just saying, Jane, I'm going to say it again. Jane, when it comes to these king nights, hotel nights, or freak off, they got 3 names for them now. In my opinion, based off of her testimony, she is not a victim. All right, let's see if we have an update at this point. Okay, no, we're still waiting. All right, so we left off with her just saying that, Perez, him saying that Jane didn't look like she was upset at all. So again, this day is exactly what I thought. A bunch of stuff we've already heard before. So the most exciting thing that seemed to happen today, honestly, was with Kanye showing up. And when they said they sent Kanye to the overflow room, I said, now you know that did not sit well with Kanye West. You know that did not sit well with him. They said when he left the courtroom, a couple of people tried to throw questions at Kanye, asking him like what he thought, whatever. And he just remained silent. Good job, Kanye. Good job. You just need to just be quiet and keep on moving. Okay. But yeah, Kanye showed up for Diddy today, and I really believe that Diddy was probably very happy about that, to see that somebody is showing up for him. I'm thinking he was probably very happy about that. Very happy about that. Because these other entertainers, they're not trying to get anywhere near this dumpster fire, honey. Nowhere near. Okay, so we are still waiting for an update from inside the court. The only other thing they talked about, again, the prosecution is upset, saying Diddy's nodding his head too much. The judge said when he was nodding his head, was he looking towards the jury? They said no, but he shouldn't be nodding at all. And the judge was like, look, it's natural to have some kind of reaction to testimony as long as it's not over the top. Because when the judge got on Diddy before about nodding his head, he said Diddy was nodding his head vigorously towards the jury. He threatened to throw Diddy out of his own trial. He said, "You're gonna have to watch your trial from outside the club." So that was much ado about nothing this morning. They were trying to get this juror thrown off. The prosecution was, from what they're saying in the press, it's a black male juror, and it seems like it was some conflict or something about where he lives. He said he lives in the Bronx, or either he didn't say he lived in the Bronx. Either way, it was something about his address. So the judge basically said, nope, not doing any of that. So that juror is staying in place. Like I said, there is still, in my opinion, no testimony supporting RICO. There is still no testimony, as what was said prior to this trial starting, about Diddy and underage children. There's nothing about that that's been brought forth. What else has happened today? We had another Homeland Security agent on the stand who didn't really do much of nothing. And this is where we are right now, waiting for an update on a day that is just, y'all, this is much ado about nothing. Much ado about nothing. I mean, and I'm talking about today's testimony. So while we're waiting to get an update, let's check into what happened with Kanye today. So I think I'll stop sharing the X thread and flip over to that screen so we could just take a look at it. Let's see. Here we go. Kanye West. Okay, Kanye. Let's see. Kanye West just arrived at the courthouse. He's dressed in all white and wearing sunglasses. West had been in touch with Sean Diddy Combs' family about possibly attending Combs' ongoing criminal trial to show his support. West nodded and said yes when a reporter asked if he's here to support Combs, but he didn't answer any other questions. West was directed to the overflow room. Okay, Kanye. Let's see what else we got. Not enduring the testimony. Okay. Another one of Combs' assistants take the stand. Okay. Kanye West just left the courthouse via the front entrance. He was seeing, of course, he would leave through the front entrance. Because you know Kanye likes all that spectacle. Mm-hmm. But and then too, I don't know if he had an option to leave another way. So maybe I shouldn't say that. But Kanye West just left the courthouse via the front entrance. He was seen getting into a car, which then drove away. He arrived at the courthouse about 40 minutes ago and asked if he was there to support Sean Diddy Combs. West nodded and said yes. Let's see what else. Ex-assistant Combs staff would get hours of notice to set up king nights at hotels. Jane, who testified in this trial under a pseudonym and dated Combs from 2021 to 2024, would accompany Combs at hotels for king nights while Perez worked for Combs. When asked, Perez described Jane as Combs' female friend, companion. I'm not sure exactly. Okay, we already know. King Night prep involved enough supplies for a day without interruption, ex-assistant says. Okay, it was a lot of packing materials, making sure that he was going to have everything he would need for 12 to 24 hours without having to bother anybody. Perez brought food, liquor, music, red lights, condoms, lubricant, and sometimes honey, he said. Honey enhances the man's libido, Perez testified. Now, Perez, you might be talking a little too much. How you know that? I mean, well, you are a man. Maybe you're talking about your own libido? You don't know if it enhances his libido, though, right? Okay, but nevertheless, Perez said he sometimes also went to sex stores to purchase adult outfits and high heels. He would pay for the items on his company card or with cash he got from security. Okay. So freaky stuff. Combs' former assistant describes what happened after a king night. Jonathan Perez, a former assistant for Sean Diddy Combs, said he cleaned up after the King nights. The room would be just a bit of a mess and in disarray, just like lots of sheets and towels and oils. Perez said his main purpose of cleaning up was to make sure no items were left behind. The former assistant testified that Combs and his guests would be tired when he saw them after a King night. Combs' staff would typically arrange for a meal, a massage, or an IV drip for him after a King night. Lord Jesus, I tell you, Diddy, it's something that's so wrong. Assistant texted about getting outfits. Okay, Combs' ex-assistant said Stafford's found. Okay, we know about that. What else we got going on? The jury hears a recording. Assistant in quorum, that's KK, discussed discovery of sexually explicit video. Let's read that because I think KK. I need to see KK during this trial. The jury has heard the recording in which KK, then Diddy's chief of staff, questioned then Combs' assistant Jonathan Perez about the discovery in Combs' Los Angeles home of a sexually explicit video of Jane and another man. The discussion involved how the video was found. KK told Perez she had got a call from someone outside the company talking about the video in some capacity, according to the recording. In the recording, KK asked Perez to tell her step by step about what happened when the video was found on the iPad because, quote, an outside person brought up something about it. This, I think, aligns with Jane's testimony when she said one of the S workers were, she said it was one of the S workers that were blackmailing them to release a tape, but I don't know, or release a video. In the recording, Perez said a videographer found the video first, then he saw it. Perez told her that once he saw the video, he told Combs, hey, I found something on the iPad that the staff uses. I can lock it up for you. You can delete it. I just wanted you to make the decision. He told KK that Combs then deleted the video. In the recording, Perez told KK he didn't have any other conversations about the video. He also referenced an investigation. Perez testified that Combs thought his phone or data may have been compromised, and KK mentioned that Combs wanted an investigation to happen regarding the video and how it got on that device. Perez said that he didn't know if an investigation actually happened. In the recording, Perez told KK that he thought the video looked like it was set up and filmed on that iPad. Perez said he never spoke to KK about it again, but at some point after that, Combs' head of security, Fahim Muhammad, asked him about the day the video was found. Perez testified he relayed the same story he told KK, and it never came up again. Perez testified that Combs' chef, Chef K, also was in the room when the video was found, but he did not mention that to anyone because he had not named her in his first account, and he was hoping the incident would not become a big thing. Okay. Tell you what happened inside the courthouse during Kanye West's brief visit. After Kanye West arrived at the courthouse where Sean Diddy Combs' trial has been ongoing, court staff quickly jumped into action and prepared for him to come into an overflow room. A source close to Combs previously told CNN that West had been in touch with Combs' family about possibly attending the trial to show his support. West was stoic as he went through security. He kept his sunglasses on as he passed through. Court staff cleared the hallway around one of the courthouse's overflow rooms. A security guard inside that overflow room told CNN he was instructed to clear a bench in the back for West and whoever was with him. West eventually went into an overflow room on a different floor. He sat next to Christian Combs, one of Combs' sons, briefly, and then left. Okay. Judge is back on the bench. All right. Let's see what other updates we may have. Okay, well, I think based off of that, we know it's over. Thank God. Ex-personal assistant says his job included doing personal things for Combs. Yeah, we know. Jury sees text messages between Jane. Okay, that we know. So let's hop back to this trial thread on X because I'm getting excited now that I think today is over. Today was a filler day for this trial, and everything that they put on the witness stand today was much ado about nothing. We didn't have to hear anything that we heard today. Nothing we heard today. And today's testimony, in my opinion, was valuable at all. Maybe the defense found some value in it because this ex-assistant spoke very highly of Diddy and said a couple of times that basically Jane didn't look bothered by nothing. He never saw her looking bothered by anything, upset, then never looked like she was doing anything against her will. Okay, according to him. So let's see where we are so we can wrap this thing up because some of them, Jane, planning for what you okay. Let's see. All right, so we left off with this part. And that may be where the testimony ends. Perez said, correct, still based on the tone of those messages, you would say Jane seemed upset. He said, no, she didn't seem upset in any of them. Right, because she wasn't. She wasn't upset. Okay, so 28 minutes ago, the jury was dismissed. Jonathan Perez is off the stand, and the judge now is dismissing the jury. The judge is reiterating his order to jurors not to research or discuss the case. Okay, so let me just see if we missed anything here. We've already looked at that part. I'll read the last update they had before the jury was dismissed. The prosecutor is now questioning Perez on redirect examination. Perez, a former assistant to Diddy, Combs, whether getting items for Jane was part of his job. Perez testified that it was. Was your title personal assistant or business assistant? The prosecutor asked. Perez said personal assistant. Haha. You know, the prosecution wanted him to say business assistant, but he's like, no, I was his personal assistant. He confirmed that his job included doing personal things for Combs, such as writing cards and buying gifts and flowers for his girlfriends. He previously testified he spent about 1% of his time working for Combs dealing with personal matters. Perez testified that KK, then Combs' chief of staff, told him to set up for the King Nights. He confirmed that he did not set them up for free, that it was a part of his job, and that he never set them up when he was on vacation. All right, y'all. I'm glad this day of testimony is over. I will be back Monday when they are back. Let's hope that Monday that there's some kind of testimony that is a value add because today was not. The only thing worth mentioning about the day is that Kanye West showed up for a few minutes. Also, the ex-assistant said some things that the defense probably thinks is favorable to their case. And other than that, it was everything we've heard before. Had a special agent on the stand who didn't really say nothing. You found guns in the security area. They were legal. What's the issue? So at the end of the fifth week, day 23, I will leave y'all with this question. What is the criminal enterprise? And until the next time, bye, y'all.